a couple of months beyond Christmas, but it may be the most wonderful time of the year. Alongside Matt Dean, riding down the Sports Den Highway, I'm Ted LaRue, and boy, are we going to pave a path this evening because we've got some boys hockey to get to, some real competitive matchups in Section 5. AA here tonight, Matt, as well as some girls basketball. It's an interesting time of the year where you have this girls hockey state tournament, you have boys hockey really getting into high gear, punching tickets to the XL Energy Center, and then you've got basketball, right? That push to determine who's going to be seated where in these section tournaments. Is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, March Madness is right around the corner. I mean, right now, like the state tournament's great, but the drama of just getting to state is arguably even better. So that's why people love this week, boys hockey section final week with those teams. A few of them trying to get there for the first time ever, and 5AA will provide lots of action, lots of drama. All three of our North Metro TV schools in that section, and we're going to start there. We'll go back to Thursday night, starting the section playoffs in the quarterfinal round, where we had the 6-seed Centennial traveling to Champlin Park to take on the 3-seeded Rebels, and Rebels trying to make it 3 straight wins on the season against Centennial, the underdogs. Easton Cody is not an underdog. He's a great goaltender. Nice pad save there through traffic. 7 minutes gone into the first. Later in the period, this is senior Nick Carlson winning the race to the puck. Great pass off the wall to Brent Solomon, number 2, a Badger commit, his 35th of the season. One of the state's leading scorers opens up the scoring. Chances were few and far between, and the Cougars trailed 1-0 at the end of one. On to the second, Jax Warren with a shot off the wall. Good net front presence, but another good save by Cody. Reese George centering from behind the net, found junior Carson Anderson in the slot. 2-0, 1:33 into the second. Cougar junior Joey Hemmer takes advantage of the lost edge by the Champlin Park defenseman, and a nifty drifter cuts it to a 1-goal game, team leading 13th of the year. This was Dykeman to Caden Johnson. Tanner Wiley with a nice save. It was 2-1 headed to the third. Dyke was shooting. It deflects off of Caden Johnson and in, but no goal. They'll say that he batted it into the goal. A late empty netter would seal it from Nick Carlson, and Champlin Park goes on to the 3-1 victory, and they advance to the semifinals. So a tough bid by the Cougars to try and upset this Champlin Park team, and they're unable to defend their section title from a year ago. They kept it close with the Rebels, who outscored the Cougars 12-3 in 2 regular season meetings. Joey Hemmer, how about his finish to the season? He had that ridiculous goal to bring the Cougars back within 2. He scored 8 goals over his last 6 games to end the season, going back to a February 6th hat trick against White Bear Lake. The junior is going to be back to the Cougars next year. 13 goals, 15 assists on the season, led the squad with 28 points in the year. And Centennial overall, disappointing end, but they played a lot better down the stretch, 5-5 over their last 10, following a 9-game losing skid from mid-December to mid-January. So not the result they wanted, but some push by those Cougars late.
Yeah, certainly a little bit of a rough patch, as you mentioned, but they did certainly play better down the stretch. You know, we're so used to seeing Centennial in these section semifinals and these section championship type of atmospheres. You mentioned a little bit of a disappointing season, certainly, for the Cougars as well. But number 7 seed, Spring Lake Park Coon Rapids, they were upset-minded going into their matchup against Maple Grove. Number 2, Crimson on Thursday night. Under 4 minutes into the second period, 3-on-1, Brady Abbott gives his buddies the cold shoulder, fires it into the hot corner. Crimson get on top after a scoreless first. Under 5 left in the second, the puck finds its way to the stick of Abbott once again. He shovels it home. 2-0 for the boys from the Grove. Ensuing faceoff, bad news for SLPCR. The Crimson Avalanche continues. Cole Forrest emerges from the trees with the goal. 3-0 MG after 2. Midway through the third, camp the big guy out in front and let him hit the slammer. 15th of the year, only 3-goal game of the year. 4-0 Maple Grove. Gavin Custerman for good measure as the blue and red season ends in the quarterfinals, a 5-0 defeat at the hands of the Crimson.
And we go to the other side of the 5AA bracket where Blaine boys hockey are on the road as the 5 seed against 4th seeded Totino Grace. These teams matched up 16 days previously, a 4-5 loss for Blaine at home. Franklin Liu with an early drive to the net. Good back checking by AJ Locke. Pucks in the back of the net, but the goal became dislodged, so no good, and it's waved off. It would take till the second before we got our first goal, so I switched to Bear. Freshman Porter Bear circles and scores his 12th of the season, 1-0, less than 2 minutes gone into the second. Still in the second, Eagles on the power play, they jam it out front. Ian Johnson gets to the dirty area of the ice and knots it up at 1 apiece. 7:25 to go. Bengals would respond before the period was through. Brody Lockman, as in I got this man. Freshman retakes the lead for the Bengals with 67 seconds left before the intermission. And Lockman, he forced that turnover and it fell right to Weston Johnson's stick. He scores. Blaine with a 2-goal lead, get the cycle to work. Wallraff to Cooper Bear to Tanner Ferdig, slams it home, and it's 4-1 Bengals, 8.5 to play. Totino Grace would punch back yet again on the power play. Watch out for this guy. That's number 7, Trey Peck, the captain, who makes it 4-2 with 2.5 minutes remaining. Eagles would pull the tender, and Wallraff would pop it in the open net. 5-2. It ended a final. Blaine on to the semifinals.
I think everyone just sticking to our structure, getting pucks in deep, back checking through the middle, just having good juice on the bench.
Game went great. I mean, we were buzzing on all cylinders today. We were just buzzing around the rink. Everybody's working hard, putting in the effort. Great game.
Bengals looking to keep their season going. They need a giant upset to do it. Number 1 seed Rogers, the foe on Saturday in the semis. Late first period, Royals on the power play. Brock Teslock drops to one knee and says, "I do," to a 1-0 lead for the blue and white after the first period. Off the opening draw in the second period, Franklin Liu carries it in. The puck somehow finds the stick of Wilson Guzzi, 7th of the year. We are tied in Elk River. 10 minutes later, the Royals say, "King me." Hudson Kottke, an absolute ripper from the slot. Mr. Rogers' neighborhood is going wild. 2-1 lead. Late in the second period, we find out 1 + 1 = 11. Parker Deshane not just 1 goal during a 4-minute span, but 2 goals during a 4-minute span. This man, just a good old-fashioned playmaker. Royals 4-1 lead after 2. Midway through the third, the Kitties got some claws. Blaine forces the turnover. Brody Lockman fires and scores to get that Rogers lead to just 2, but that's as close as the Bengals would get. Pair of late goals for Rogers seals the deal on the 2024-2025 season for Blaine. The Royals advance 6-2. And the Bengals fought hard early in this one, but 3 goals during a 6-minute span absolutely killed them at the end of the second period. Blaine was outshot 38-9 throughout the first 2 periods. So when the goaltender is peppered that much, it's going to be difficult to kind of stay in the game throughout this season. But really talking about the Blaine Bengals and the improvement that they have made over the last few years. They finished with a 17-10-0 record this year. This is a program that has shown big year-by-year strides under Trevor Frischman. You know, a couple of years ago, they only had a couple of wins after the coaching change, but this is a program, Matt, that is clearly taking steps forward.
Absolutely. It's an 11-win improvement over last year. I mean, it was shocking at first when Blaine had back-to-back losing seasons, but a coaching change, a lot of players depart, you know, in the modern era, and Trevor Frischman, former NHLer, all-time great at Blaine. They're absolutely taking the strides in the right direction. This is a really talented Rogers team with 3 Division I commits, a couple of Mr. Hockey finalists. Blaine are going to be back next season. We'll see. So this is what the 5AA bracket looks like right now. That section final coming up in 3 short days at the Furniture and Things Arena. We're going to have either a first-time state qualifier in school history in Rogers. They've been so close knocking on the door these last few years, upset by Centennial in the semis a season ago. Or we'll have a Champlin Park team that haven't been to state in 30 years. Their only trip in school history was back in 1995. Royals, of course, the favorites. They're number 4 in the state. You got Mason Jensen, Nolan Gertis, both Mr. Hockey finalist and D1 commits, and just a loaded Rogers team that's been building, it feels like, for a long time.
You know, talking about outside of maybe our 3 North Metro teams, it would be very cool to see Rogers punch their ticket finally to the state tournament as well. And speaking of the state tournament, Centennial Spring Lake Park girls hockey was not only in the AA state tournament, but they were the number 2 seed going into this thing. Maybe one of the contenders to take home the trophy when all was said and done. A big upset in the quarterfinals to the Rosemount Irish. 3-2, Rosemount takes it home. The Cougars, before this game, they hadn't lost since a January 4th 4-2 loss to Holy Angels. Just 2 losses during the entire regular season. And this was a tale of missed opportunities. CSLP outshot the Irish by 13, 35-22. The Cougars' only 2 goals came on the power play with the woman advantage. Grace Lager netted her 22nd and 23rd goals of the season. Now, there's a lot of youth on this team, and Grace Lager is certainly a big part of that. She ended the season with 60 points. She's got 2 years of eligibility left. She's going to certainly be a big part of this team going forward, but kind of circling back to this specific game, the 2 big performers for CSLP this season, Tegan Kuhlenkamp and Mia Such, combined 0 points, no goals, and no assists. Another great season, 26-4-0 record. They lost to Andover 4-2 in the consolation semifinals as well.
Yeah, I mean, tough result. This is going to taste bad for the Cougars, but only 5 seniors gone. Tegan Kuhlenkamp, that's a big one to lose, headed to St. Thomas, but everybody else is back. Loaded sophomore class led by Grace Lager. So the Cougars, I think it's safe to say they will be back, and this is a real powerhouse that Sean Moline has built in Class AA. Here's how the rest of the girls' state tournament shook out at the Class AA level, and that upset by Rosemount, it was a trend of larger parity in the tournament. 5 of the 6 games in the tournament decided by 2 goals or less. Holy Family ended up finishing 3rd, Rosemount 4th as they lost in that 3rd place game. And you had a title game rematch from last season that goes the other way. A double OT classic as senior Ella Horning with a deflection goal scores 2:04 into the 2nd extra period. And it makes a state champion out of a Lino Lakes native. How about JC Chatelaine, who played some high school hockey at Centennial SLP. I know she played her youth hockey around here, played a year of high school. I know folks don't like to see that, but look, she's from Lino Lakes. We're cheering for her, and congrats to JC on coming home with a state title for Hill.
We'll certainly take it where we can get it right there. So congratulations to the Pioneers. 5-4 victory, as you said, in the state championship game as well. So that kind of wraps up hockey. You know, boys hockey, of course, in the books with teams going down in the semifinals, and then, of course, CSLP going down in the state tournament on the girls hockey side as well. You know, March Madness is right around the corner. The last month or so has been a little bit of madness for Centennial girls basketball on the court. They've had to forfeit a handful of games, and a game that they really wanted to get for no reason whatsoever was this game against Coon Rapids on Tuesday night. Cougars winners of 3 of 4, looking to keep it going at Coon Rapids. Opening minute of the game, you know, Autumn McCall, she just does Autumn McCall things, the future Tommy. 4-0 Cougars right out of the gate. Cardinals creating turnovers with a pick 6. Aliyah Graham takes it to the house. 2-point game, 2 minutes in. Cougars +6 now. Always move when you don't have the ball, kids. That's the motion offense. Kate Lee boogies her way to the basket. Caps +8. Sydney Schmitz cutting towards the room. Hey, there's net movement yet again. Finishing in the post, Centennial a 10-point lead. They're getting into a groove. Under 10 till the break, 11-point lead. McCall's outlet pass finds Amelia Del Medico, and she tickles the twine. 14-point Cougar lead. Next time down the floor, it's not a replay, folks. It's Del Medico takes a stride to the left and achieves the same result. 17-point lead for the Cougs. Del Medico this time leading the break. Ava Taylor, 2 of her 8 points. Centennial is running down the dream. Under 6 minutes until half, McCall once again flashes her great court vision. Schmitz on the back end of that. 20 points for Sydney, Cats up 23. Under 4 to go, she can break down the defense with a single pass. Abby Matthews behind the zone on the receiving end. Centennial up 52-28 at half. Second half, more of the same. It's basically like a Stockton to Malone type of connection at this point. Cougars roll to their third win in fourth tries, 91-59 on Tuesday night. Autumn McCall and Sydney Schmitz combined for 44 points on the night, and it's been par for the course as they are the only two players on this Centennial team that are in double digits on average in scoring. And when we talk about Amelia Del Medico with 14 points in this game, she's a lot like that old Detroit Pistons, Vinnie Johnson. They called him the microwave because he can really heat up in a hurry, and you really saw that stretch with Del Medico, and she can be a really good third option for the Centennial girls basketball team right now. Centennial closed out their season with a 58-77 loss to Eden Prairie on Wednesday and a 50-58 loss to Elk River on Friday. But it is time for everybody's favorite time. It is bracket time, Matt.
That's right, and we get into a little confusion right away because, again, you mentioned it, Centennial had to forfeit the first 15 games of the season because of an ineligible player. They're just 6-20 on paper, but the other section coach is acknowledging on a true talent basis this is one of the best teams in the section. Centennial had won 4 straight section titles until coming up short in the semis last year. So they're the 2. Anoka, one of the better teams in the state right now. They're the 1 seed, and the Cougars, as the 2, will host Duluth East tomorrow night. First meeting of the season with the Greyhounds, who are 13-13 on the season, and Centennial looking to climb that mountain to get back on top as section champs.
Boy, if you're looking for something to look forward to next week, next Monday, we're going to have all kinds of girls basketball coverage. But looking at this section in 7-4A, let's take a look at Blaine sitting there at the number 4 seed. Now, Blaine lost 2 head-to-head games to Andover. Andover had a better section record, a better QRF, yet this game's going to be played in our backyard just down the street over there at Blaine High School. They get the number 4 seed in there as well. Some interesting things, a potential semifinal matchup against Anoka for the Bengals. Blaine lost by just 4 points on December 10th, 51-47, and then the next time they played Anoka on January 24th, Blaine lost by just 3 points, 51-48, nearly a carbon copy of those 2 basketball games. One interesting thing to note for this particular section, the semifinals and the championship will not be at North Branch like the last few years. It will be at the high seed all the way throughout. So with Anoka already getting through with a bye, they will host both games over there on Saturday, back-to-back in the semifinals. So both of those games are going to be at the home of the Tornadoes at Anoka High School. But this is always a really fun section to cover year in and year out. Andover's won it. Centennial's won it. Blaine has been competitive. It's always fun to see what comes out of Section 7-4A.
Yeah, ever since Centennial dropped it last year, it's been wide open. Going over to 5-4A, which is the section occupied by our Spring Lake Park Panthers. I get a sub-500 season for this super young Panther group, but this is a weaker section once you get past number 1 ranked Maple Grove, who have Jordan Odie, a future Big Ten player committed to Michigan State. They're 26-2 on the year, but there are some openings to potentially have some upsets leading up to a matchup with the Crimson. Spring Lake Park, the 3 seed, will host Park Center later this week. The Panthers beat them 65-48 earlier this year on February the 13th. And, when you look ahead at future matchups, Ted, I know we were talking about this. Yeah, Mounds View handled the Panthers pretty comfortably earlier in the year, but this is a super young Spring Lake Park team.
So, yeah, like you said, the winner of Spring Lake Park and Park Center will play the winner of Mounds View and Irondale. It did not go well early in the season for Spring Lake Park, but a lot of time, that was November 30th, a lot of time has certainly gone by between then and now. One other thing to certainly keep an eye on, Anna Smolich will have to carry the Panthers if they want to make a run through this section tournament. She scored 20-plus points in 2 of the last 4 games leading into this particular section tournament. 25 points at Rogers on February 18th, 20 points in that matchup that you talked about at Park Center on the day before Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I mean, when I talked to Bart Johnson before the season, he said Anna Smolich is the sleeper in the conference. I think people know about her now, but she's a good player, and she could certainly carry Spring Lake Park to a section semifinal and potentially beyond. Flipping over to the boys' side of the hardwood, here's a look at the Northwest Suburban standings. The Bengals, who've been hammering it home, a nice turnaround for them with a new head coach in Bernie Ward this season. They're playing 500 ball in a really tough league in the Northwest Suburban. Spring Lake Park just behind them have dropped 3 straight conference games after a 7-7 start in the league. Centennial back-to-back wins over Coon Rapids and Elk River after they had lost 3 straight against the Northwest Suburban Conference as of late.
And then we flip over to what's coming up, what's on tap. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty in all of this thing, and this is the last week of the season. Hey, let's check out February 27th. You're going to see it live on North Metro TV when Centennial travels to Spring Lake Park in that Cat Clash matchup.
Yeah, and just thinking about the brackets, we'll have those for you on Sports Den next week, but a lot of that you can kind of read the tea leaves and kind of have it set. Blaine are a likely 2 seed, despite that record hovering right around 500. They've got a key section game to try to solidify that against Cambridge Isani to end their regular season. Centennial are looking like probably a 4 right now. They're either going to play Forest Lake or Coon Rapids, 2 teams they've already beaten this year earlier on the season, and that would be a home game, crucially, for Centennial in Section 7. The Panthers are in Section 5 because of head-to-head losses to Champlin, Maple Grove, Park Center, and Mounds View. They're not going to have much of a case to be anything better than a 5 seed right now. That probably means they rematched with the Mustangs, and that was a competitive game, 52-64, won by Mounds View back on February 10th. That's my bracketology work.
Absolutely, we love to see it. And something you don't see every day is playing an opponent at Elk River for Blaine twice during back-to-back Tuesdays as well. So we'll see if they can get the win over the Elk River Elks. Beginning of the show, we talked about some big stakes in state tournaments. We want to advance to the 4-3A individual wrestling tournament that took place this past weekend. First, a couple of guys that are punching their tickets to state at 107. Jack Greikelko defeated White Bear Lakes Muang Lee 31-16 in a second place match. And at 152, Jack Regseger, boy, great names here the way by these 2 Jacks, defeated Aman Suba of Roseville 31-13 by major decision in the second place match. So both of those Cougars are punching their ticket to state, and poor Tyler Cook at 215, man. He falls in the second place match 25-15 by major decision to Stillwater's Cohen Lumbing, the number 2 ranked wrestler in the state. And then also in that 2015 weight class, Lumbee lost to the number 1 wrestler ranked in the state. So Tyler Cook was a state caliber wrestler. He just ended up in the wrong weight class in the wrong section in this particular year as well. Aiden Ford with the heavyweights at 285 falls 26-9 by tech fall to Braden Maxey of Mounds View to finish 3rd. State tournament for gymnastics, the state meet, I should say, for gymnastics, held in St. Paul at Roy Wilkins Auditorium this weekend. Blaine Jr. Grace Vazo placed 7th in the floor exercise with a 9.735 average, a high score of 9.4 from 2 judges in that discipline. And the future is bright for Centennial. You got a freshman in Michaela Osland competed in the all-around competition, finishing 8th as a freshman, so with a score of 36.2750. So the future is definitely bright for her in this gymnastics program right now. She had an 8.4 on the uneven bars, a 9.2 on the beam. She finished 12th. 9.25 on the floor, finished 8th. That was her highest of all of the disciplines. 9.425 on the vault. She ends up in 13th. So bright future ahead, Matt, for Osland, Michaela Osland, and Centennial Gymnastics. Boy, you can place in the top 10 as a freshman. You know things are going to get better.
No doubt, no doubt. And when we said it at the top of the show, right, best time of year, girls hockey at the X last week. Those 2 Jacks we talked about competing for Centennial in wrestling, they'll be at Excel. That's the individual state tournament, which is on Friday in downtown St. Paul. The team competition just the day before that. And then we'll be talking this time next week, previewing the boys hockey state tournament. And again, it's fun to hop on the bandwagon now. Like, pay attention to the section finals. We're not going to have any North Metro TV schools involved, but like this is a great time to follow.
It's a fantastic time, and these 8-section games at the AA and the single A level, they're just so fun to watch with everything on the line. Of course, the Minnesota State High School Hockey Tournament, one of the biggest high school sports tournaments in the entire country, selling out the XL Energy Center for these games. It is so fun to watch these kids punch their ticket to state. But next week we are going to have all sorts of basketball coverage. So if you love hoops, if you love the hardwood, next week is your certainly edition of Sports Den.
That's Ted LaRue. I'm Matt Dean. Our director, Charles Brolin. Thanks to him and Tim Shingen and A.B. Becker. We are signing out another episode of Sports Den. We're back to lock it down. Catch you all back up again next Monday. We'll talk to you then.